Yeah. Okay. You're recording now. So,
We are.
got a special episode here of We Are the Solution. I have a good friend from college. Kagiso, is your last name still Painter or did it change?
It is. It's still Painter.
Kagiso Paynter, coming to
Yeah.
us from Australia. I don't know which city she's in. She's going to tell us that here in a minute. But obviously, as you can see, she is a woman of color. As you hear her talking a little bit, you'll find out she's from America. We're going to get her views on kind of what's been going on in this country and, kind of what she wants to see happen. And hopefully it will be an informative, educational conversation. So, Kagiso, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit about you?
Oh man, what a nice introduction. I feel so nervous. I feel so nervous with that setup. Sorry, did you hear that?
I did. I can hear
Okay,
you.
it's gonna happen three more times. That noise. Did you hear that noise?
No, I didn't hear anything. I just hear your voice.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Great. Anyway, well, yeah. So we met each other in 2008. Go Purdue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I majored in political science there and have always had an interest in politics. I've always had an interest in human behavior, the study of human behavior and sort of why people do what they do. So I guess not necessarily politics, but just what the study of people, that's always been super duper interesting to me. My background, so I don't know what they call it. Am I first generation? I think I'm first generation. My father and mother are both from South Africa.
Oh.
Yeah, they're both from South Africa, and they exiled from apartheid. They exiled from South Africa because of apartheid. My dad in particular was really active during that movement, but was basically kicked out of the country because they thought he was communist and a whole bunch of other things.
Oh, yeah.
So from a very young age, I guess that's where I got it from. When I was 3 years old, there's a picture of me in a newspaper marching in Canada on my dad's shoulders, protesting the show, Showboat, and that's all about,
Okay.
if you don't know the background on Showboat, check it out. It's a beautiful
I was
show,
thinking
but it's
Love Boat
also,
for a minute.
Showboat's different situation,
Yeah.
and you got to see that. It's still a pretty popular show to this day. But anyway, we were protesting that show, and I remember I don't remember, but I was holding a Fisher Price megaphone, at 3 years old, and it sounds really sort of like but I guess this is, it started at a really young age that I was interested in. And I guess politics, but really the social component, people, why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so both my parents are from South Africa. However, in saying that, my father is a Palestinian. So yeah, so we got a lot of things going on there. I won't delve too much into that, but so I'm coming from a very sort of diverse background. My mother is a Black South African. My father is Jewish. Okay, culturally speaking. So yeah, up here I'm a bit of a Lenny Kravitz, if you get what I'm saying. No, but or a Drake or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But no, I identify as Black, and so.
Well, in America, I don't think you're really given that option.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people pass. You'd
Yeah.
be surprised, until they sort of speak on it, you'd be surprised. So that's a whole other sort of interesting topic. But yeah, so that's, I guess, about a bit about my cultural background. I have four brothers, so I'm pretty. I don't know why you need to know that, but anyway,
I think that matters because, when you see these videos of cops killing Black people, it's almost always Black men. So it's a little different fear, like when you got brothers. Because like my girlfriend, she's a black woman from Eritrea, came here,
Mhm.
kind of similar situation, first generation American, fled a civil war, like
Mhm.
violence, and like that. She's been taking this really rough. Like I think she's cried like every day, and she's
Mm.
said that like the thing that like makes it really hard for her is like she envisions like this could happen to her brothers. She
Mm.
has two brothers
Yeah.
as well, and it's like you see black men
Mhm.
just getting killed like basically with impunity. And
Mhm. And you it happens to black women too. And I think that quote Malcolm X, I think was it Malcolm X
I
who
think
said that like the most the most disrespected, and I can't remember the entire quote, but basically as a black woman, she's the most disrespected, most sort of tossed away
yeah.
person is a black woman. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, though we are seeing obviously lots of black men who are suffering at the hands of police. But I think that's because they're not the ones to be at home. They're not the ones really. I'm not saying that they're not rearing, but they're not, they're out there. Do you know what I mean? They're out there.
Yeah.
So I feel that black women have a little bit of a different journey here.
Hmm.
So yeah, it is tough knowing that, I have all my siblings, my black brothers who are out there and potentially could just die, and to think about bringing children into the world. I'm recently married to a white Australian at that. But to think about bringing children into the world, even here in Australia, which is, in my opinion, a very racist country,
Yeah.
that is a tough reality, and something that I debate about doing a lot. And I know that a lot of people have different opinions about that and whatever, but um, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Yeah, so I've got four brothers, and I do worry about their safety, and I do worry about their day to day. And it is very stressful during these times. I think I've been waking up in the middle of the night with just sweats or bouts of anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, I think, there hasn't been a lot of attention or talk about the psychological effects um, that the psychological effects of what this is actually doing to people, but particularly Black people or people of color as well.
Hmm.
Seeing these images and how sort of desensitizing that is.
Yeah.
Uh, there's not a lot of folks. There's only sort of recently has that come about, and I would say only like in the last maybe week and a half has that come about. But I've been wondering for a long time, since Eric Garner,
Hmm.
because the shock of that was unbelievable, and how much it was spread. That video was
Hmm.
just spread across the world and shared. I mean, I was one of those people to share it, but I wanted to share it to bring attention to it. But I feel what happened was it just uh, it it has done some kind of PTSD, some type of weird PTSD. That's the only sort of way I know how to describe the feeling of continuously seeing these
Yeah.
images. It is really something else, and it is extremely shocking to your nerves, to your nervous system. You know, sometimes I think to myself, I don't know how to act today. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to, I don't know what I think today. I don't even know what I want to eat today.
Mm.
But anyway, I guess we'll get into it. But that's a little bit about my background. I got my political science degree at Purdue. It was great. Then I got a master's in fine arts from University of California, Irvine, and then I taught for a little bit in LA. I did a little bit of the acting thing in LA, and then shortly after that, I moved to Australia. But I was actually born in Canada,
Oh,
and I did most of my growing up in Buffalo, New York. So
are you a dual citizen? No? Oh man,
no,
that'd be so handy right now.
I know, right? So handy, but no, but it's cool. It's not being home
Mm.
is something that I every day since these protests have been happening is something I feel really pained about. And really, since COVID has been happening, I somehow feel guilty because um, I'm not there. I'm not there, and so I may be speaking from a place of like, well, I know what racism is, and I felt racism, and I've experienced racism, and whatever. But I'm not there. I'm not protesting. I'm not. I'm not feeling it every day in that way. I'm still feeling it, but I'm not feeling it like your girlfriend is feeling it right now. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's definitely a lot. What's the
Mm.
coverage like of all this stuff over in Australia?
Um, it's
Because
the media is owned by Murdoch. You know what I mean?
I,
So it's got a real conservative slant. There are some stations
they have CNN there,
that
right?
no,
No? Oh, I thought they had
no,
CNN in every country.
I know, right? No, they share some of the CNN sort of. They've got some correspondence anyway from CNN, but the show that's probably a bit more on the liberal side or a bit more progressive is the station I would say is ABC. They've got things like Viceland. They've got this one
Okay.
show called The Project, which is pretty progressive. I say progressive, but it's honestly
Yeah, I know what you
pretty
mean.
liberal
Yeah,
and and helpful. So, but yeah, so they have shown the protests. They're sort of like on the conservative end, where they're like, oh, the looting has to stop, and oh,
oh yeah.
the violence has to stop, and all this stuff. But on ABC, we do get to see more of that left slant, which is like power to the people and we're with you, America. And I'm here in Sydney,
Yeah.
and they've had some protests,
Okay.
not in indirect sort of indirect like linking to the Black Lives Matter protests
Yeah.
in America, but they also have their own issues here with respect to police brutality and Indigenous people. So right now they're marching on behalf of one of these children who was basically brutalized by a police officer in custody, and his chief officer said he was having a bad day. The
Oh,
officer was having a bad
we've
day,
heard
and
that. They
that's what
put him on
happened.
administrative leave too.
No, he's not. He's still working.
Oh, geez.
Um, he was just having a bad day because he doesn't have any record of ill treatment toward people in custody.
Hmm.
But Australia in the world has the highest rate of Indigenous people or Black people or people of color in their jails in the
Really?
world.
Even higher in the U.S.? That's shocking.
Higher than, yes. I want to say in comparison to the population. So like whatever the indigenous community makes up here, in comparison to the incarcerated people, it's like, I don't know, like 400% or some shit like that. It's insane.
Damn.
Yeah, it's insane. So in the world.
Which is kind of crazy to me too, because like every time I see anything in Australia, it's like you don't even really see Aborigines, or like they make it seem like Australia is 100% white, but I know obviously it's not. So I'm like, where do they hide these people? And do they not? I don't know. It's weird.
Well, they make up a small percentage of people, and the indigenous population. They make up a small percentage, but they're there.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes, they're there. They're living amongst all of us, you know, and they're just trying to survive. And they're just trying to survive. Excuse me. And the other thing is too is they have a very what is it? A high death rate? What do you call it when they die early? What life
Low life expectancy.
Thank you. A low life expectancy, exactly. I think the average age is like 37.
Holy shit, that's
It's pretty
crazy. I mean,
bad.
that's like,
Mm-hmm.
damn. I mean, that's a
Might
lot
be
of
that
people.
might be like a previous year statistic. I don't know what it is for this year. Actually, I know it is, but it's, yeah, I don't think it's changed much.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand, in Australia, the police don't carry guns, right?
No, they do carry
They do
guns.
carry guns. Do they use them
Mm-hmm.
very often?
Um, yes, they use them. Let me just say that. I don't know if they use them very often, but they use them. They use them.
Okay.
I think it's the UK that doesn't carry
Yeah.
guns.
Okay. Well, because I
Yeah.
know in a lot of countries, like you look at the death rate of like citizens per, because they always do it like per 100,000 or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
U.S. is like off the charts at like citizens getting killed by law enforcement per 100,000 compared to like
Mm-hmm.
every other country that has what do they call it, a Western democratic country or whatever. Countries like us
Mm-hmm.
that have our same, political system and economic system. All throughout Europe, Asia, Australia, they've figured out how to police people without killing it anywhere near the rate we have. So, are there any differences you see in how police or citizens interact with police, or how police interact with citizens, or just the general feeling over there, like citizens towards cops? Is it this any? Do you notice any differences between here and there?
Yeah. There's not as much violence here. There's not. There's not as much violence. And I don't feel afraid of the cops here. I don't know why. And maybe I don't feel afraid of the cops because there's not as much violence, but I am not intimidated by them. I am intimidated by policemen in America.
Oh yeah,
Um, I don't feel unsafe around them. I know they could potentially use, you know what I mean, use
yeah.
force on me, but for some reason I don't. And if I think about it further, I guess I feel that way because I am from where I'm from.
Mm,
So there's a large chance that maybe they think, oh, she's from the UK. Because if I don't open my mouth, let's say she's from the UK, or the likelihood is they don't think I'm American, or they don't think I'm Canadian, whatever it is, they don't think I'm, the likelihood is they don't. So they may think I'm from the UK or something like that. Or they may think I'm an islander.
oh
And so, yeah, so I guess I feel comfortable because I just have to open my mouth.
yeah.
And if I open my mouth and I don't sound like I'm from here, there's a higher chance that they will be nervous to go through with whatever they thought they wanted to go through.
Mm,
Because they talk how, I know that's different in the United States. I feel like,
yeah.
let me say this. When I have had any sort of police interactions in the past,
Mm,
this sounds crazy. I've never felt uncomfortable.
mm,
And it's only now, through the onset of social media, do I feel uncomfortable because I've seen things.
yeah.
So the last time I called the police was 2014. And I called the police because I was staying at this guy's house that I was dating for like a week. Oh God, I won't even talk about that. But it was in LA, and I was in Echo Park, and I was staying at his place, and he had gone to work, and I heard someone breaking in.
Oh.
And as soon as I figured out what was happening, I got into my survival instincts and, survival mode, and I didn't know what I was really doing, but I went over to where I thought the action was happening, and I was like, get the fuck out of here, put on my voice and scared them, because I think they thought that the house was empty, because I think they did their research, and said, oh, this guy goes to work at this time and blah, blah, blah. So when I called the Los Angeles Police Department, who is notorious for being one of the most racist departments, who came 20 minutes later after I made that phone call, as well, by the way, I could have died. And I waited, not in that house, but I grabbed all my things. I had time, thank God, I had time to grab all my things and go over to my car. I circled around the block, and I came back, and I waited for the police to come. And when they came, they questioned me. They looked at me almost like I was a suspect for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the more they spoke to me, the more they were like, oh, okay. And then they started to say things like, can you give me a little bit more information? A little bit more information about that person? And so when I told them exactly who these people were, they knew who they were too.
Oh.
And I said, oh my God. And then I found out, okay. And the neighbors knew too. These two girls are notorious for breaking and entering. They cannot pin them down for whatever reason. They've got a brother who is part of the MS-13 gang who shot another person executioner style. And I'm getting this information from the police and the neighbor downstairs, who's also there. They're twins, these two women. They are like crazy. They killed their mother, neglected their mother who had diabetes. I don't know why I'm telling you this whole story, but she died in the house and everything. But basically at the end of it, they asked me, they were like, will you testify? And will you testify on this ongoing case against not these two girls, but their brother?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them and I'm like, I don't even want you to know my name.
Yeah.
There is no way I'm testifying, and there's no way you're going to use me.
Yeah.
But I guess this is all to say, I didn't fear the police. It was an Asian and a white guy. And I didn't fear the police. And I knew for a little bit, I thought, is this person a suspect? But, I guess I'm thinking to myself, they see me. I'm a little person. I can explain myself. I can tell them chronologically what happened. They're going to believe me.
Yeah.
They're going to believe me. And I've come with a sense of privilege in that. I grew up middle class. I got warnings from cops. Oh, you're driving home again. Why are you speeding? I was, I'm a prom queen, so they know me in the town.
You're a prom queen?
So I was.
Oh wow.
I was of my little old high school.
I feel like.
So I'm thinking, huh?
I could see that.
What'd you say?
No, I could see you.
Oh God.
Prom queen.
Oh. Sorry. Well, thank you. But you know what I mean? So there were privileges that I feel probably I didn't realize that I had. And that I just sort of I didn't realize. And maybe actually some of those people were actually being racist toward me, and I just thought they were doing their job even. Now that I think back on some things. But
well, growing up in Buffalo, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only ever met one person from Buffalo, but I get the impression Buffalo is probably an overwhelmingly white city. Is that true? Like not a lot of color in Buffalo?
You're frozen.
Oh,
Frozen.
hello.
Okay, you're back. You're back. But you were saying Buffalo's overwhelmingly what?
White, is that true?
Oh yes, it's a Polish communities.
Okay. Do you
Um,
feel like maybe
yes,
growing up in
very,
that
very, very
environment?
white. But Buffalo City.
Sorry, I feel like we're having
Sorry.
a issue on one of our ends.
Yeah, it says that your internet's it's like red for
I
some
know that's what it's
reason.
showing for you.
Oh,
I don't
weird.
know who's having
My,
bad internet.
let's see. Let me look at it real quick. I've got four. I'm like super duper connected here. Although Australia is notorious for terrible internet, so it
Oh,
might be mine. It probably is mine. So sorry about that.
okay. Yeah, because I'm
But Buffalo's got. Okay, go
go
ahead.
oh, go ahead. You were gonna tell me about Buffalo. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, Buffalo's got a large Black community in
Hmm.
the city of Buffalo. I grew up in the suburbs, but it's still it's very white.
Yeah.
Buffalo, a lot of people from New York say there's nothing going on in Buffalo.
Mm.
And there's not, like not New York, from New York City, it was like, oh my God, you live in Buffalo. There's nothing going on in Buffalo. And I'm like, we got the Buffalo Bills and we got, Buffalo Wings. So, but that's about it.
Yeah. Do you feel
Mhm.
kind of growing up around like in a predominantly white area kind of has made you feel a little more, I don't know, relaxed or like non-threatened by police? Because like I feel, well, a little background about me.
Yeah. And I
I
think it
worked in,
also,
oh, go ahead.
mhm. No, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say real quick, like I worked in Baltimore for 2 years with like at-risk youth, and they were all from like the inner city of Baltimore, D.C. And I kind of realized they had, because if you're familiar with Baltimore, D.C., there are towns that are overwhelmingly black, which was kind of shocking to me in the first place because I didn't even know that existed in America. I just assumed like every city was kind of like predominantly white, like to varying degrees. But then to go to Baltimore, we're like, um, I mean, I never saw another white person in my apartment complex. Like it was just me. At work, it was pretty much just me. And then every day I'd ride the train to work, it was just me. And I was just like, it was weird for a while. Like, but it kind of was eye opening to me because I was like, this is what every black person that I met in college went through. Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially people that came, because like one of my best friends is from South Side of Chicago, grew up in Chicago public schools, always around. Like when she took me home for 4th of July one summer,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were literally black people like, because we were driving down the street and there were black people that were like walking down the street and they would stop and like look at me like they just saw something that didn't belong. And at first I was like, why do they keep looking at me? Is it the car? And I was like, no, they're looking at me because like I'm the only white person anywhere in this neighborhood. And I was like, they're
Yeah.
just kind of looking at me like, what's he doing here? And
Mm-hmm.
it was just,
Mm-hmm.
it was weird though, because I was like, I'd heard black friends of mine in college like talk to me about like always being the only black person in their class and like always kind of, especially like when a race thing would come up, they'd be like, hey, why don't, Kagiso, do black people really feel that way? Like you're supposed to speak for the whole black people
Community.
type thing. But when I lived in
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, I would get that, like, because all my coworkers were black, and they'd always be like, "Hey, Mr. Rhodes, why do white people, this?" And I was like, I don't know why white people
Yeah.
do that. Like,
Right.
just kind of
Right.
eye opening to me because I was like, this is what black people, especially the higher up the kind of the ladder in life you kind of climb, because
Mm.
the more successful you are, the more you're kind of entering into like overwhelmingly white spaces. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like I see it in, I work at a big airline. I see it, the corporate ladder, the higher you go, the whiter it gets real fast.
Real
And
fast.
it was eye opening for me because I was like, I was glad I had that experience because it was real uncomfortable at first, but then after a while, you kind of just, it becomes normal. And it was like,
Wow.
before that, like if you had thrown me on a subway train of just like 50 black people and me, I would have been like, whoa, this is weird. But then after it becomes normal, you're kind of like, wow, I used to be uncomfortable in that situation. And it's like,
Wow.
that's really weird. Like,
What a
and
unique perspective you have.
yeah,
That's amazing. You should write a book because that's really interesting. I know you're from Indiana, and
yeah,
I know you're from the corn. I
yeah.
know.
Surrounded by
I know.
corn.
Yes, yes. And that's really cool. Wow. Wow.
That's the
That's
weird
really
thing.
interesting.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, this whole past week has been weird for me because,
Mm.
growing up where I grew up, like, I was always kind of taught that, racism was wrong. At least I mean, I wouldn't say I necessarily got that from my community so much, but definitely in my household, like, I was taught to treat people how I wanted to be treated and everybody was equal type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so going off to college was really the first time I had like interactions with non-white people, because I was
Mm.
used to seeing like black people on TV as either criminals or drug dealers or athletes, or
Mm.
occasionally you would have like your or stand-up comedians, because they watch a lot of black comedy. Um, but that was kind of like, and we grew up like when gangster rap was a thing, like that was big thing. It's not really a thing anymore. People don't really understand like how different rap music was, especially like popular rap music back then. But that was kind of growing up. That was my representation of black people. And then when you
Mm.
go to college and you meet black people that don't fit any of those stereotypes, it's just kind of weird at first, because you're like, you don't know how to process it, or like, because you're kind of expecting them to act a certain way and they don't. And you're like, okay, I'm having to reprocess all this new information that's coming at me. And like when I worked in Baltimore, when I worked with these kids that were predominantly all black from the inner cities of DC and Baltimore, I realized they had like ideas and stereotypes about me. And
Mm.
through the process of like me working with them and getting to know them and them getting to know me, like those things changed too. And I had a couple of kids kind of like tell me stuff like that. And it was just kind of eye opening, because it's like, we got to figure out how to like stop this generation after generation of kind of just like stereotyping and forming these just really screwed up views on each other. And like, it's just weird and complex and frustrating that we still are having to deal with this shit like for like the
Mm.
past 150 years, like same shit.
400 years.
Yeah.
400.
I was just reading earlier about, like, have you ever heard of Jack Johnson, famous like black boxer from like the right around 1900s, 1910s?
No.
He was the first black heavyweight champion. He was kind of
Mm.
scandalous because he openly slept with white women. Like, it was just like he didn't give a fuck.
Wow.
But he was crazy. But
Was he lynched eventually or what?
no, no.
That's
He ended up
impressive.
having to do a year in prison because they came up with some kind of law that was like escorting women across state lines to engage in debauchery type. I don't know. It was some weird thing, but he ended up doing a year in prison. But the I guess the white women that he slept with all were like basically like alienated from society though. Like, but yeah, but the whole thing was like when he first won the heavyweight championship, he beat like this guy who was like an open racist boxer who came out of retirement just to prove the white race was superior type thing. And
Mm.
when he beat him, I just was reading earlier, race riots broke out in like 50 cities across the country. I was like, this is
Hmm.
like 1910, 1911, something like that. I was like,
Mm.
man, like, man, our history's so jacked up.
Mm.
Man, messed up.
Wow.
And then like Denver was one of those cities that rioted because of that. And now we got 100 years later, they're, rioting on at least the right side of history. Well, not
Mm.
rioting, they're
Mm.
protesting. We haven't really had much riots here.
Mm. Wow. I can't believe you haven't. I can't believe it's my opinion that everybody, I know this sounds wild, but it's my opinion that the riots should happen.
Yeah, I don't really support it, but I can fully understand it. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
get it. The only thing that's frustrating to me here, because I don't really know how they're showing it where you're at, but especially since I was down there, I've been down there. What it is like, so they have the people that are like protesting peacefully, usually being led by like Black Lives Matter or some groups like that. And then they kind of do their march and their protest and everything, and then they bounce and they go home. And then a large chunk of the group leaves.
Mhm.
And the people that stay behind. So we got a few groups. There's like there's libertarians, which I've always kind of heard them kind of talk about being anti-law enforcement, but I never believed it until this stuff. They've been great. Like they're demanding like, I mean they're
Mhm.
really good on police reform. It's kind of shocking because everybody views them as like right wing, but they're
Mhm.
actually really
Yeah,
good on a lot of social issues and police reform. Uh,
they are.
they're doing great on this.
As
So
long
they
as they're
got
not with the Boston Tea, they're not affiliated with the Boston Tea Party group. I know a lot about them because of my ex-boyfriend.
okay.
He's a libertarian. So I appreciate them, but there's another side there. But yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you have like these anarchists. So like downtown Denver and like a lot of these cities, you'll see like you'll just keep seeing these A's with the circle around it. That's anarchy,
Mhm.
or the anarchist sign. There, I mean, that's just tagged everywhere. So like
Mhm.
anarchists, they're kind of like coming out later at night to kind of do some rioting and all the fun stuff they like to do, spray painting everything, destroying some stuff. And then you kind of have like these ultra leftists, and I don't say that in the Republican sense, which they view Democrats as ultra left, but I'm talking like people that look at Democrats as like basically right wing. Like
Yep.
I have some friends that belong to some of these left wing groups, and it's like they would view me as kind of like
A centrist.
at best
Yeah.
probably right of I don't know, like the way they use the term liberal is almost like a slur that like it is a
I
slur.
got you.
I'm not going to say like a
Mhm.
slur. They definitely use it as a slur, and it's used at me. Like
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
I mean, I kind of have friends that are in different groups, and those are the people that are kind of engaging in the stuff where they're like confronting the police. And but now after the first few days of like the rioting and stuff, it calmed down quite a bit. Like it's been much more peaceful. There hasn't really been as much of that here, but it seems like DC, New York, Atlanta, LA. It feels like those big four cities are like the ones that are really off the hook, like just really still going, like at the police. Everybody else seems to have simmered down a little bit, and they're kind of like, or the media is just not showing it. You never know, but those four cities are the ones that they keep showing, like, seem to be going a little harder, which I can kind of understand that too. They have a lot bigger cities. It's a lot easier to get a lot more people out there. 'Cause,
Well, I mean, how can you ask your oppressor for freedom?
yeah, yeah,
How?
that's the
How
crazy
do you how do
thing.
how do you ask? How do you ask for unity? How do you ask for peacefulness? How do you ask for forgiveness? How do you ask?
Yeah,
How
that's
do you ask? And we've been asking, and they've been asking. I understand the anger, and who actually wants violence? Who
yeah,
actually wants that? I don't know anybody who wants that. Everyone knows war is bad. Most people,
yeah,
I would say a good 90% of the world is like, no, we don't want to go to who wants to go to war? Who wants to be in violence? But how do you even communicate to
mm,
your oppressor that how do you ask? How do you ask? You can't, especially when it's been happening for so long that you've been asking
yeah,
peacefully. It's only after civil unrest. It's only after riots. I mean, you remember what happened after all the riots in 1968? They passed that law
hmm,
during Martin Luther King era. It was only after the riots.
yeah,
So, you know,
yeah,
I don't I understand it and I appreciate it.
yeah,
I do. I appreciate it because that's when reform happens. It doesn't happen in negotiation. It
yeah.
never happens in negotiation because unless there are two people who are at equal playing fields, but you're not. We're not. We're not.
No, we're not. And that's the
So
frustrating part. It's like I
yeah.
don't
So
know. That's the part that's kind of not hard not to feel hopeless right now. Is because like on one hand,
but
I'm seeing something that I feel eclipses anything I've ever seen in at least my lifetime. I wasn't around for
same.
68, so I can't speak on that. But this is like the first time I've actually had hope that there would be change. Because like after, obviously I was only like 10 years old when I saw Rodney King, and I don't even really remember the riots. I just watched like a documentary on the riots sometime in the past year, and I was just blown away. Like, holy fuck, that happened when I was alive, and I don't really know much about that. it was fucking crazy. Like, I mean, they basically had like the black population in LA going to war with the Korean population in LA for like a couple days or 3 weeks. But the cops just could not do anything. They just said, "Fuck it," like burn the city down. Like I was just like, holy shit, like this is insane. I can't believe that happened, and this is not something we teach like everybody about. Like we just kind of like don't even really look at it. But Ferguson was, you know, had the potential to kind of be that thing, but then it just didn't go anywhere. Like we got some, I don't even know what came out of that. There probably was like some kind of law that got passed or something, but obviously policing hasn't changed at all. And it's like, you know, you kind of look at it now and it's like it feels different. Like it feels like there's a reason to be optimistic because this is the first time I've seen Republicans, like every Republican, even the people that always, like every cop video you've
You know
seen
why?
on
You
the
know why
regular.
it feels different? You know why it feels different for you? Outside of the fact that um, it's happening during a time in which you can see and understand and be introspective, which feels different because there's rioting.
Well, there was rioting after Ferguson, just
Yeah,
only in
but this is
Ferguson though.
everywhere.
I know.
This is everywhere. And the
No.
world is participating. This is an
Well,
international movement.
that's crazy. Like I saw New Zealand, they were
Because
doing it.
everybody sees that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Abroad, they're like, holy shit, America's a first world country, and this is how they treat their citizens?
Yeah.
And they want them to ask
Yeah. Fuck that.
the world, even Australia has shows, as I mentioned, these liberal shows, these ABC series shows saying, holy shit, they want them to ask?
Yeah.
To stay, they want them to ask for their rights to stay alive? Wow, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is fucking crazy. It's because it's crazy. Because it's crazy. And that's why you feel different. And that's probably why you feel a little bit of this, there may be some hope there. There may be some hope there. It's because people don't want war.
Yeah.
No one wants war. But when they see there's a potential for war, they get scared and they say, whoa, something's got to happen. Something's got to erupt. There's unrest.
Yeah.
There's actual unrest. People are actioning in a big way. And it's not just a whole bunch of talk, and it's not peaceful.
Yeah.
People are mad. And it's not just Black people. It's also, I don't know if I don't know as a white person if you've seen this, but or heard about this, but it's angry white people who feel not necessarily so impassioned about civil rights, but their rights as being disenfranchised or abandoned by their government.
Mm.
What's happening right now? COVID-19 is happening, and they don't have a fearless leader who can protect them
Yeah.
and help them during this financial, during this, who can protect them and offer, something. They can't pay their rent. You know what I mean? What white people have to be angry. White poor people have to be angry, and they are angry. I know they're angry. I know a few that are angry and are okay to riot.
Yeah.
And again, I don't like violence. I don't want violence.
Yeah.
I think that the answer is not violence. However, are we supposed to have this revolving door of forgiveness? Just let it keep on getting hit in the face. Keep on getting our, because everyone's got good intentions.
I just kind of look at it like I grew up in an all-white town in the middle of like rural Indiana. I have been hearing Black people talk about getting abused by the police and fearing like the fact the police can like plant evidence on you, kill you, just basically do whatever they want to you and get away with it. Since I was at least like 10, 11 years old. So that's
You
20,
see?
26, 27 years I have known about this. And
You
it's like we
see?
have a generation, and the main place I learned about that was from like 90s hip hop and stand-up comedy, but mainly 90s hip hop. I mean, there's so many songs in there where they're talking, like describing to you in very vivid detail, like what is
How
going
it
on in the
happens.
community. And it's like I
Hmm.
know people that grew up listening to that music and then are still trying to pretend like they are making this up, or like it's not that important, or it's like, dude,
It's not
this,
happening anymore, or
and
it's
that's
not
like the
happening.
third or fourth. I mean, it's been going on since obviously what 1600 or whenever the heck the first slaves came over here. But it's like, you know, we've had riots and protests and riots and protests over the same freaking issue for at least
A
100
long
years in our
time.
country. Like every decade, like it's just we don't teach people about it because there were riots in the, riots and protests in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I don't know, 70s and 80s seem to drop off the map. I don't know what the hell was going on there. They didn't seem to be doing much, but then it picks back up again in the 90s and 2000s, 2010s. It's like, how many times do we have to keep doing the same thing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just solve this. And it feels
Mm-hmm.
like this is the craziest thing to me. I don't know if you know who Pat Roberson is. He's like a
I
Pat Roberson. Do you know
don't
who
think
that is?
so.
He's on the
No,
700 Club if you're familiar with that. It's like this
I am. Yeah,
evangelical, like right wing
pastor.
Christian show, but he's like
Mm-hmm.
100 years old. He's been on the show since like what I don't know 50 years or whatever. But he's super right wing, like just
Yep.
always talks crap about Democrats. He
Yep.
came out and was criticizing Donald Trump, like wanting to send
Yep.
military into cities, and I'm like, what is happening right now? I can't even wrap my head around this. Like, you have right wing people that always support Republicans criticizing Trump and the Republican response to this.
Mm-hmm.
But then the thing that kind of gets me is like when I think about like what is it actually going to take from the citizens to actually get change on this? Because it's not going to be protesting. Like there's going to be a lot of other things they're going to have to go into it, and that's the part that scares me. Like,
What is it going to take from the citizens?
yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like so the people we have in office right now, right? Those are the
Mm-hmm.
same people that have enabled and a lot of like in some of their cases have protected and prevented change on these issues. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you have people in office that aren't committed to fixing the system, then clearly you have to get rid of them
Mm-hmm.
to fix the system.
Mm-hmm.
Are
Mm-hmm.
we willing to do that? Like, are we committed to that?
Are
I
who's
just mean
are
all
who?
these people that are out in the streets right now, all these people that are saying, they support change. Are we?
Totally different though. Totally different because that's secondary. That's secondary.
Yeah,
I don't feel, I'm sorry, I'm so impassioned about this because yes, we do need to go out and vote and make sure that we get the right people in office, but it's secondary because even for example, Obama, who I love,
mm,
it was great. As in, he was, he was a great symbol. And he
mm,
still is a great symbol. I don't know how effective he was, okay, as an American president.
yeah,
I'm not hating on him. I'm not hating on him. I'm saying that he is an incredible symbol. And just who he is and who he was has forever changed politics, and it's forever changed what America looks like and stands for. However, I don't know if he was particularly effective. So yes, we can vote in, you know, who we think will be the right people for reformation. You know what I mean? But is this is most of these people in politics? It's a career,
yeah,
and we've got they're career politicians and people like, for example, Bernie Sanders. And I know, like, I wasn't an advocate of Bernie because I just didn't feel he was going to get in, but everything he stood for, hell yeah,
mm,
hell yeah. But I had to think realistically, I had to think logically, and I just knew that that wasn't going to be it.
yeah,
But those are the people we need in office. But the likelihood is we're not going to get majority of those people in office because that's just the likelihood. So I think it's secondary. I think that we have to focus on the ground. We have to focus on the ground until, like, the voting thing is another tier. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have to get our hands dirty. We have to be right in there. And the people who we get in office will then feel the pressure of, if I don't do what my constituents asked me to do because they got in there dirty, okay, then, you know, I'm going to be in trouble. So it's not just a career thing for many of these politicians, because it is. It's a lifestyle. I studied this shit. I know what it is, you know? I get it. I get it. I get Kamala Harris. I get it. Girl, I get it. She's a mess. She's a mess. Do I still like her because of what she symbolizes to me? Absolutely. She is the type of Black woman who I love hearing from, because she is eloquent and put together and, you know, comes from a mixed background and yet identifies as Black. She's got all the symbols for me that I just love. But is that a career? Has she got a career? She's got a career, and she's bullshitting in a lot of ways. And I smell her from afar. And I think a lot of people smell her from afar.
That's what's kind of cracking me up is like, I haven't watched CNN, MSNBC, Fox News in years. I can't even name the last time I watched it because I can't stand the way they cover the news. So I kind of like prefer to read news and get it from a lot of different outlets. But with all this stuff going on, like, you know, you want to see what the hell's going on, especially when it was like getting to where like stuff might really pop off every night. So I was kind of watching CNN and MSNBC. I forget which one she's working for, but they got her on there every single night. And I'm like, is it really a good look for a company who's trying to pretend to be on like the protester side and on the side of police reform to be having a district attorney who has a lot of questionable cases under her belt that involved like doing negative things to these very people and supporting cops? I'm like, is that like, this is the media in the country like right now, like, and then that she's on there like talking like she's a champion of police reform. I was like, you have a record that we can look up. Like, we know that. I don't know. It's frustrating, like seeing the way the media is kind of covering this and then trying to like spin it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's also it's frustrating. But the new thing. I remember. I feel like when it really took a turn for the worst was when her Kellyanne. Yes.
Trump's
when it started was with the alternative facts.
Oh yeah.
That's when shit hit the fan, and people, you didn't have to be accountable. Even if you could be looking at a person and looking at them straight in the eye, it being recorded, them showing information or background onto who you are and how you voted or how you go about doing your whatever it was, and you could just straight up lie. After her, it was like it was a mess where people, I remember thinking to myself, like, people can't believe this Kelly Conway. They cannot. And they did. Even if the evidence was right in front of them. So
yeah, facts are optional in America now.
They are optional. They are optional.
It's crazy.
And you know, my husband often says that it's because of the rhetoric that we have where anybody can be anything. He said he thinks that after, you know, the wrestlers who became governors, there's two of them, Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then obviously you know, Trump. He's not a wrestler, but you know, a media professional.
He was. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Oh I did see that. I did see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
He had one wrestling match.
Yeah. So my husband says that, well, he thinks that it's all about, he thinks that it's all about just this whole narrative of in America, you can be whatever you want. And Kirk often says things like, yeah, but also like you need to have an education to be able to, and you need to know what you're talking about before you just get voted in, and all of that makes a lot of sense, but he could be right. He could be right.
That's what kind of scares me, is because like if you listen to like ancient Greek philosophers kind of debated this very thing, like with democracy, and then our founding fathers had varying degrees of views on democracy as well, and like who should get the vote and all that. And both of them had arguments, because what's his name, Socrates was notoriously against democracy, because his big fear was that like you let stupid people vote, they're going to elect somebody like Donald Trump, and then it fucks up your whole democracy and the whole thing is at risk. And I was like, I used to always disagree with that, but now that we're in the situation we're in now, I'm like really starting to kind of think like maybe everybody shouldn't get to vote, but then you're never going to be able to restrict the vote in America because of the racial stuff that's happened in the past. So it's like it's impossible. It's never going to happen. So it's
no,
like,
it's never going to happen. And it's also not right to a degree.
Because
yeah, but I get it. It is true, but it's also saying we know better.
Yeah.
We know better, whatever that,
It's kind of showing me like the importance of the media, like actually doing their job, because their job is to inform citizens so they can make wise decisions when they have to make, because citizens in democratic countries have a lot of responsibility, and if they screw those responsibilities up, like there's a lot of consequences that come with that we're never really told about or kind of taught, like, hey, this is your duty as a citizen to make, you're kind of like a safeguard against this and this and this happening in your country. And if you don't do your part, then your country's at risk of these things happening, like a psychopath like Donald Trump getting in office and all the other things that have kind of happened over the past couple of decades, which is frustrating. So are you optimistic that meaningful change is going to come from all this stuff that's going on right now?
Yes, if the change doesn't happen as a result of these riots, then I feel like there's going to be a civil war. And after that civil war, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thought, but I could actually see it now because, being over here, I saw how quickly the narrative flipped as soon as the looting started. Like when it first happened, everybody was like outraged. Oh, that's wrong. The protest happened. Everybody's like, well, we support the protesters, like Republicans supporting protesters. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, you never support protesters. Colin Kaepernick protested. You didn't support that. But then, I'll get back to that in a second. And then as soon as the looting started, immediately it switched from we support protesting to everything was about the looters. So they talk so much about the looters and property, like the way they kept saying, like, we got to protect property, we've got to protect property. And I was like, we don't even protect these people's lives. Like, that's the whole reason. Like, if you want to protect property, do police reform. Like, do police reform and everything goes away. Like, that's the whole. But you try to explain that to people, and it's like they're like so dug in on that. And especially once Fox News and Trump just start the nonstop bombarding of suddenly now it's Antifa, and the left doesn't care about this, and the radical left Democrats are supporting looter. It's just freaking nuts. Like, I was flipping through the channels yesterday, and you see CNN and MSNBC kind of covering the story in one very noticeably way, and then you turn to Fox News and it's like 100% opposite. Like, they're basically making it, they're blaming like all the looting on Democrats, and it's just basically encouraging like extreme divisiveness, but with armed people. Like we're adding guns to the
Mhm.
mix of our hatred now. It's like, yeah, it's kind of terrifying. And I have some friends from back home who are sadly on the wrong side of this, I feel, but hopefully they'll see enough people get hit in the head by cops and maybe change their tune. I don't know. I don't know how to get people to understand like this can happen to your kids too. Like just because it hasn't. Like what would you expect people to do if the cops did this to your kid and just be like, well,
Honestly, I kind of get why they don't understand. And I kind of also get why they don't understand because there are some Black people who don't understand.
yeah, I've seen a few on
Yeah.
Fox News.
And I'm saying I haven't even just seen Fox News. I've seen I think what the problem is when there are Black people who were either born into money
Mm-hmm.
or have gotten money, earned a level of success with money,
Yeah.
all of a sudden not necessarily like they forget where they come from, but I see all this talk of like love and unity and peaceful and again, it is not that I don't think that that is the answer. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should keep getting slapped in the face either. And I don't think that, anybody should be asking for the right to live. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that your right to live should be taken.
Mm-hmm.
It should be taken. And by any means necessary.
Yeah, there's Tupac did like I think it was like around the time when he got out of jail. He was doing an interview
Oh, I saw that video
with Kurt.
about the eating thing.
What's that?
About the eating thing. How
Yeah,
the food.
yeah. Where he's like, first we're sitting out there asking, then we're kind of like dancing, like asking, like please let us in. And then after that, we're just picking the lock and kicking the door open because it's like you can't wait for this stuff. Like you can't wait. Nobody should be expected to wait for equality. Like
No, that's it. That's it. Nobody should be expected to wait for equality. And then even to wait
yeah, to ask
and expected to ask.
in a country that's already promised it to you. It's not like you're
That's
asking for
another
something
thing.
that wasn't already told that you have. You've been told you have this, and then you're not being given it, but everybody else around you is being given it. You're like, the fuck? No, I'm not gonna
What?
ask for this. Like, give me my shit now.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it. That's it. And that's what's angering. And that's what's terrible. And that's what's really, and even before the anger, that's what's really hurtful.
yeah,
And I think that there's just a lot of hurt people, and it's being misunderstood as just anger and violence. And no, it's not. It's about a hurt group of people who are demanding their right to stay alive.
yeah. People grieve in their own way. You can't tell people how to grieve pain. Like
No, and you can't
everybody.
tone police them either. Like, how can you like, what the hell? I hate that. You don't like the way someone says, oh God, I've gotten into so many arguments, I think, and just having this conversation is just helping me realize some things. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was really heartbreaking because of one of my friends that I worked with in Baltimore. He's about 50. Yeah, I think he just turned 50. He's got two kids that are 22 and 20. And I was asking him the other day, like just talking to him for like 40 minutes on the phone about all this stuff. And well, sorry, I left out the part. He's a 50-year-old black man. Grew up in like Virginia in like a mixed area, but now lives in Baltimore. But he's got two kids, obviously, that are both black. And I was asking him about it, and he does not feel like he's just kind of given up on the hope that change will happen. And I was like,
Mm.
that's just fucking sad, man. Like, damn. Like to just be
Mm.
like 50 and just accept that you'll probably never be treated as an equal human being. Like, damn, that just kind of hurt a little bit. I was like, damn, man,
Mm.
shit, there's people out there that kind of, I wonder how those people that are like old enough to like, because there's people that are still alive from the 60s. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just kind of wonder, like, what are those people feeling right now? Like,
Mhm.
because they've seen it all, man. Like,
Mhm.
all like 50 years, 60 years of it. Like, I feel like we kind of owe it to them to give it to them before they die.
Mhm.
Because I mean, damn, this shit's just nuts. Did you hear? I was gonna ask you about two things. Did you hear what's his name, John Boyega's little speech he did the other day, yesterday, I think it was, at a rally in
The
the UK?
actor.
Yeah.
Mhm. I didn't hear it. No.
Oh man, you gotta listen to that. It was raw. Like,
Was it?
yeah, 'cause he
Mm.
was, yeah, like
Mhm.
he was basically on there, like kind of. I mean, it wasn't one of those because sometimes you hear people give the little speech, you're like that was like a pre-planned speech. You probably practiced like 30 times. This did not. This was not that. This was like a very emotional black man. Obviously, he's in UK, but they got all the same kind of racism stuff going on there, and um, he was just speaking from his heart. Got a little raw, and at one point he's like, yeah, he's like, I don't give a fuck if this. Well, they were censoring out a lot of it, so I'm just going to paraphrase. He was basically saying, I don't give a fuck if this ruins my career. This is more important than that. Like, this is about blah, 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 blah. He, was breaking down, kind of crying at one point, had to kind of like
Mm.
compose himself, but it was a really good speech. I was just like, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of black people who watched that and felt that. Like, because it's like,
Mm.
that's the thing that's kind of gotten me is like, I feel like I don't know, I've heard a lot of my black friends talk about like these kind of things before, and then my
Mhm.
girlfriend's talked about it and stuff. But like, just like seeing her cry about this like every day, just like
Mm.
because she's been down, and then it's like she'll just be reading a story, watch a video, then all of a sudden just starts crying, and it's like
Mhm.
seeing just that level of, and then some of these other like celebrities and stuff, athletes and just black people they've had kind of do videos. It's like, man, the just that level of pain and just kind
Mm.
of like hurt is just,
Mm.
I don't know, it kind of made me realize that white people just can't understand that. Like, there's nothing, there's minimal degrees of like feeling, um being made to feel less than, or like, you don't
Mhm.
belong, or things like that in your life as a white person you can experience. But the level, or just degree to which like a black people feel that every day in a lot of
Mm.
instances, it's just like kind of hit me for the first time. Like, that's like deep. Like,
Mhm.
like, man, I don't know, like white people, just as much as you want to understand, you're never going to be able to understand that, because that's just
Mm.
something you have to experience. And like, just seeing him kind of do his video and like some of these other videos where you see like these just macho men who are just like, I mean, basically like our modern day gladiators, just like breaking down with tears in their eyes. Or if you saw that LL Cool J thing, he did a video. You saw that, like,
Of course, I saw that. Big
tears in his
LL Cool
eyes.
J fan.
Oh, I
Mhm.
didn't know.
Yes.
Yeah. But just seeing those tears in his eyes and stuff, and it's like, man, like, I don't know. It just feels like this is different, but it's like, man, I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded because it's like hard for me to even believe that change is possible in this country anymore. With everything I've seen, and it's like just knowing how corrupt like our system is, and like, but I don't know.
But
And then with Trump in the
even
White House,
e- even even amidst terrible things, good things happen. And
yeah,
there's always balance to this shit. There's always something there's always something redeemable. So yes, I do believe that something good will come out of this. Definitely.
I know my state, they proposed, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm optimistic. We have a Democratic governor. Democrats control both the House and the Senate in our state house. So they're proposing like 5 changes to police, which I liked all of them. There's probably a few that were probably left out that the leftist groups will probably be criticizing them for, but they were all like really good steps that provide transparency. Like one thing that was crazy to me though was like one of the things they're proposing is to make it now illegal to shoot somebody in the back running away from you if they commit a felony. So I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me it's illegal right now to shoot somebody in the back running away from you if they've committed a felony, and they're not threatening you just because they've committed a felony and they're running from you, you can just shoot them? What the fuck? Like, do you not understand like why people think there's a problem with police? Like, no other country in the world is that probably illegal or probably legal. Like in Australia, that'd probably be unheard of. Like if somebody just got on the news, like, yeah, he was just running away. But did he have a gun? Was he doing anything to threaten you? Nah, he was just running away.
No, no, no. Let me just tell you, it happens. It happens. It's not talked about.
Oh, geez.
It's not talked about, but it happens all the time.
Ah, that's sad.
It's not talked about because they're a dying.
Yeah.
They're a dying race, and that's not what the media has an interest in.
Mm.
So that's another devastating thing right there.
Sorry to hear the UK or the Australia is becoming like the US, I guess.
It always was. It's an oppressor. It always was. So
I've heard that the Australia's been getting more conservative like the past couple of elections. I don't know how true that is, but
they're just becoming more of who they are openly because of our superpower, America. So they're just becoming like, yeah, because there's just, you know, they've always been around and they've always had power. You know, the conservatives here, they've always been around and they've always had power because they've always had money.
Yeah.
But now they're just getting more comfortable because they've got a great, you know, they've got a great leader. You know, Trump is a great international leader for a lot of their causes. And that's, for a lot of countries who are like this, it's great. It's great. Like the prime minister here, I just read an article headline. The prime minister here said that he didn't think it was right for Australia to, quote, import the Black Lives Matter movement here because of the police brutality that had happened in the last, I think, week or two, and therefore start a protest. He said, no, don't do that. We have our own issues here, but we have nothing to do with that, and we shouldn't import this movement in our home turf.
We don't need no anti-racism stuff here, folks.
You know, and it's like, and people are like, yeah, all those surfers, yeah.
Has it been pretty peaceful there? Like no rioting and stuff?
No, peaceful protests. The indigenous people here are nomadic, and they were nomadic, sorry, and they are a peaceful, like they're not, you know, like I feel like they're a little bit different than you know, the Aboriginals are different than their neighbors, the New Zealand, the Maoris.
Yeah.
The Maoris were warriors. Those people fought, you know.
They got their little war dance and everything for rugby and all that.
Yeah, but they fought for their freedom, and so you know, they share that land. They have that. You know what I'm saying? In Australia, the Aboriginals were defeated. They're actually a peaceful people. They're not warriors. So it's a different, you know, they want to sit around, do what they do, not be bothered.
Yeah.
We're kind of chill, you know what I mean? So it's different. It's different. But yeah.
I know something you had mentioned before was obviously your husband being a white Australian. What kind of, I guess, challenges or fun conversations has that led to over because you guys have been together for what, like 5-6 years now, something like that?
Six years, 2020.
You guys met in LA, right?
We did.
Yeah. So he's seen America a little bit.
And he
you
loves
guys have been in
America.
Australia for a few years. So what kind of conversations has that led to?
Lots of conversations. I don't think he realized how racist Australia was until he had me living with him. You know, I don't think he realized how racist some of his friends were until he had me living with him. You know, like you see this, I think for him, it's like you see this stuff, you know this stuff, but you don't think it doesn't affect you. And,
Yeah.
and because like you only know of good things happening where you are and to you, how could this be true? Really?
Mm-hmm.
It must be or it must be like an isolated incident or something. Oh my God. So, you know, having me around, I've consistently had to have these conversations of like, I don't want to go to that. I don't want to go to that party. I don't want to go to this wedding. I don't want to do that. I won't participate in that because do you remember what happened the last time? Do you remember what they said? Remember when we walked down the street and that happened?
Shit.
Mm-hmm. Some crazy shit. You know what I mean? Like not it's like imagine because I think it was 2008. They made this official apology to the Aboriginals. Unlike America, we never made an apology to our indigenous people, to the Native Americans.
Still?
And so, no. And they have such good social welfare programs here. They really take care of their people. It's sort of hard to think that they could be racist because in so many ways they're so progressive and so with it.
Yeah.
But it's like you know how like people are like, I'm not racist. I have a black friend and a black girlfriend and a black coworkers and I've been to their houses. It's like that. It's so I wouldn't say it's systemic or institutionalized really because they have the laws are crazy, but it is sort of like living maybe 10, 15 years behind America. In a lot of sort of social ways. So like I remember going to the bar and there was a guy that I would always pass on my way to work who would always kind of flirt with me. And I noticed him at the bar. And so I waved and I was with my husband, but he would flirt with me in like a respectful way. Like, oh, that's a nice dress, or, oh, you know, just not any way where I was like, oh yes, or anything, you know, it was just kind of like, he was always nice. And, you know, I appreciated the nice things that he would say to me. But he comes up to Kirk and he's like, isn't she so, and he's drunk. Isn't she so beautiful? The only problem is she's black.
Jesus.
And the weirdest thing is that my husband didn't say anything. And I didn't even know how to process that. I remember looking at him and being like, well, why isn't he saying anything? So I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I see you every day in this. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm carrying on with a drunk man. Yeah. You know? So I'm like, oh, let me not. But I could see Kirk not knowing how to process that. And for one of the first times, I realized he doesn't even know what to do. This is not his argument. Like, this is not his, what? It was like he was shocked and also not in the same reality or something, you know? Yeah. There was a time when we were walking down the street and walking down the sidewalk, and this guy from afar, he was probably like 5 feet I shouldn't say it far. It was pretty close. It was like, but for me, it was like he was a distance away because of how loud he was screaming. But he was like, yeah, move out of the way, you black bitch. Get on the other side of the road, you black bitch. And Kirk grabbed me and pulled me to his side, but didn't say anything. And I thought, I'm like, and And as this guy's saying, this has never happened to me, by the way.
Mhm.
None of this shit has never happened to me in my life before, okay? And, I'm looking at him, and as the guy's passing me, I'm looking at him, I'm like, did this guy just call me a black bitch? Am I really hearing this correctly?
Jeez.
And I look back at him, he's like, yes, I did, as he's walking by me. Yes, I did. I called you a black bitch. And I'm like, well, and Kirk is just standing, he's like, come on, and I'm like, no, I'm not scared. I just am surprised. Because this is unbelievable, and he's like, well, believe it. But it was so shocking to the system. And they're outside of that. So like in, the workforce, for example, they love Americans, because we say what we think, we mean what we say, and we do what we are going to say.
Yeah.
And we're not slow about it. We're not relaxed about it. We're really immediate about things. So in the workforce, they love us. But as a Black woman, it's very threatening. It's like, uh-oh, are you going to do the Black girl thing? Are you going to like toss your head around and, give me attitude? I'm just going to ignore you. I'm going to pretend like you don't exist. I'm not going to look you in the eye. You know what I mean? Like really bizarre things, or, but at the same time, I can see them weirdly appreciating it. Like, it's nice to have somebody different in the office, and it's nice to have a pleasant face in the office who's excited about work or excited about the day, and not afraid of me, even though they're afraid of me. There's some sort of, when I say afraid, I mean just like they don't understand. They look at me and they're like, okay, your face looks like that, but I think you're nice. Are you nice? Are you saying that in a nice way? I'll be like, yeah, let's do it like this. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I know I just spoke English, and I know I'm so loud. So I know you heard me.
Yeah.
What do you mean what? And then it's like, oh no, I really didn't hear you. Please don't become defensive. I'm not defensive. I just know that you're looking at me and you're not hearing anything I'm saying. So it kind of feels like being a bit of an alien here in Australia. It feels like they're shocked to hear the way I sound and to see the way I look. I think they have like, it's what's a really like interesting thing for them is seeing Black men. Every Black man from America who's here, whoa, it's so cool. You play back because it's Black culture, right? It's Black American culture. Whoa, you must be a basketball player, or like, a rapper. You know what I mean? Have you met 50 Cent? Like that kind of thing. And it's serious. And that's why a lot of African Americans, men in particular, love Australia. They're like worshipped.
Oh, wow.
But worshipped. And they stay here. They marry white women. And that's how they get to stay. It's a little thing here. It's a little secret. But that's what they do. And they love the expat life because it's a nice life.
Yeah.
But I can't say that the Black female experience is much the same. It's almost like this, again, remember, I don't know how it was for you, but I feel like years back, and it may still sort of be like this, but I know that it was really like this years back. There was a time where you couldn't have a crush on a Black girl. It was like, you can't like a Black girl. Mm-hmm. No. It was the thing. It was like no one can know that you like a Black girl or that you have a crush on a Black girl. It was like this like secret. I think I was in like second grade where I realized it was a thing. Because there were boys who would be like, I like you, but I can't like you. I'm not supposed to like you, you know? And I remember talking to my mom, and my mom's like, this is why. And I'm like, holy shit. But it was a thing. And as I grew older, I knew it was a thing too. Because then when I graduated high school, in college, I had guys who were like, I just never felt comfortable about making the move because I don't know what my family would think or my friends would think and blah, blah. And I was like, holy shit, it is a thing. It's a thing. So it's still a thing. And it's still a thing here to one date outside of your race, but it's another to date a Black person. It's just,
Wow.
it's like taboo.
That's funny that you say that, because obviously we met because I had a big crush on you, and then
I
learned
remember.
that through you were friends with people I worked with, and then I met you, and I was like, who is this? And then,
Hmm.
but I remember in college, the thing that was weird for me, like as you mentioned that, was I met Black women at college that I had crushes on, but I never really would pursue it, because it wasn't because I was worried about my family or my friends or any of that. I didn't give a fuck about that. It was more because I had never seen a Black woman with a white man, and every girl I
Hmm.
saw at college that was Black was always with Black men. So I just
Hmm.
assumed Black women had no interest in dating white men. So it was like one of those things where I was like, I'm going to get rejected if I step to this girl, so I'm not going to do it. And then it wasn't until years later that I
Hmm.
realized I was completely fucking insane. And there are many Black women out there that date white men, and like where I live now, there's interracial couples everywhere, because I live in like the one area of the entire state of Colorado that has a lot of diversity, because it's
Hmm.
like the poor side of Denver, and it's like where all the immigrants come. So we have tons of diversity where I live. Like I'm a minority in the area I live, but so I see
Wow.
interracial couples everywhere, and I'm obviously been in interracial couples or interracial
Mm.
relationships now. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was just kind of mind blowing to me when I would meet Black women and found out they like preferred dating white men. Like you look at their dating history and it's like 90% white men. I'm like, this is possible? Like what? Like,
Yeah, it's crazy what you don't know, right?
yeah. And I don't even know where that came from. It's like a stereotype I had in my head, but I have no idea where it came from. It wasn't,
Well, the media
yeah, could be.
and what's around you. You know, it's like I remember having to explain to many people who'd be like, "Hey, so why does it feel like so many of the men you date are white?" And it was like, because what kind of options do you think I have? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what kind of options do you have versus what I have? Why don't you consider where I've grown up?
Yeah.
You know, if that's what you've grown up around, what do you expect? It's just like I expect someone who has, you know, grown up a particular way to probably have a lot of those same values, unless those values are somehow wrong and they've been able to, as an adult, realize that and
Hmm.
change that. But like, you know, I think about some of my friends during this time who are like, oh, I don't support violence, but I do support the protesters,
Hmm.
you know, and I realized like, wow, that hurts me. That hurts me. That's not a cool feeling. But
Yeah.
in the same breath, I'm like, I get why you think like that.
Yeah.
I get it. I get why you think like that. You haven't had to grow up around violence. And you wouldn't know what it feels like to go through this. So you think this way, you know? Um but it wasn't until college did I realize, wow, there are Black guys who don't look like my brothers. This is cool. You know, I'm dating him and him and him. He looks nothing like my brother, you know, and it was so exciting for the first time to be in Indiana and to see, oh my God, that guy, oh my God, look at him. He is so hot. Like I could not believe it. I could not believe it, only to end up with a white man, which is so interesting. So interesting. I don't know what that says about me, but
Yeah.
um, let's just say he was the only one. He was the only one to ask me. Okay,
Hmm.
he's the only one to ask me. So look, it's fair. You know, it's fair. So anybody come and try to step to me now, like, oh, and I do sometimes get some grief from the Black community, like, oh, Kagiso, look at you, you really try to be about the Black cause and the Black movement, and yet look at you with a white. He was the only one to ask me. I am 34 years old. What is, I love him, but like,
what?
huh?
The only one to ask you what?
For my hand in marriage.
Oh, got you.
For my hand in marriage, and there was plenty of Black men that I was dating seriously,
Oh,
so
really? I've only known like because you had the one long-term boyfriend in LA. He was a white dude. I remember him
from the South.
And then I remember your husband, and that was about it. I don't remember anybody else, but yeah.
Yeah, I dated a Filipino as well when I got to college. No, I dated a Filipino in high school too. I mean, look, I was interested in everybody, but I didn't have options. I was limited in options, and Kirk was the amazing thing about Kirk is that he was so cultured and so well traveled, and because of it, even if he didn't know things, he was open to experiencing them and changing his mindset. So when you're cultured, well traveled, and you don't necessarily have maybe a mixed family or a diverse upbringing or something like that, you're more prone to understanding and accepting things. And so I found him so enlightening, and he's been, he's been an amazing person in my life, and I'm very glad to be married to him. I'd marry him, 3 times over. He makes me mad, but I marry him 3 times over. You know what I mean? But yes, those were my options. Okay, if anybody tries to come at me, like, this is what was happening.
Yeah.
So
did you ever get any feeling like anybody in his family was kind of like not okay with it?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. But she's no longer in our lives. I sound like the Wicked Witch. I removed her. I deleted her. No, the people that mattered supported us, and his mother and his uncle supported us, and they were the people that I had hoped would, and they embraced me like almost immediately when they met me, and I couldn't have asked for a better relationship with them.
Well, that's good. My girlfriend's mom, when I met her, I don't remember if it was like the first time, but it was like pretty close to the first couple of times. She speaks pretty broken English. So we're sitting there talking, and she's telling me that she's just kind of joking with me that because they're East African. So she was saying that like originally she wanted her daughter to get married to like a Christian Eritrean. And then after, so many years go by and she's not married. This is probably like starting like 1920 because she wanted her to get married young. And then by the time she's about 25, still not married, she's like, okay, he doesn't even have to be Christian. He can just as long as he's Eritrean, She's telling me this to my face. And then she's like, when she got to be 30, I was like, it's okay. You can even date a white guy. It's okay.
Oh my God, because that's how it is.
Yeah.
Because you know what the sad thing is? The sad thing, and my parents, not my mother, but my father. My father said it to me. He said, the best thing to do is to marry a Christian Black man. And that's what I want for you. And I was like, Dad, that's not the way. Oh my God. And and he's like, yeah, but you'll see. And now I understand that the reason that's the conversation is because they know what life is like. They've experienced life. And my parents saw firsthand what it was like to be an interracial couple in a community, in an environment that did not accept them. and did not accept particularly my mother, and the pain and the grief that that was for the both of them. And so if you are with somebody who, one, shares your similar faith or ideology, but two, shares a similar shares the same nationality, cultural background, ethnic background, excuse me, life is easier. You can relate to each other. You can understand each other. You'll go through the same pain, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's like, it's not really that they have any kind of problems with it, you know, because they know at the end of the day, you love who you love, but it's like, what's life going to be like for you?
Yeah. My dad actually told me something similar. So my first girlfriend I had in college that I was like serious and moved to LA for and thought I was going to marry and have babies, she was Palestinian. And
There
she
you
met
go.
my family and everything. Nobody said anything. It was good. Everybody liked her. But then it was like a couple years after the fact, I was home visiting my dad for something, and he told me that some similar thing. I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but it just completely caught me off guard because I was like, man, I had a Palestinian girlfriend, right? Like, did you feel this way when I was with her? Like that you kind of like didn't want me to like be with somebody that was of, and I was just kind of like defensive about it, like, thinking it was like coming from a racist place, but he was kind of explaining it that it wasn't, because he has a problem with it. It's just he knows the way the world is, and he was like, it'll just make your life a lot easier, and especially not necessarily our lives, but the life of his hopeful grandchild. He's like, doesn't want his grandchild to go through like all that shit that's gonna come with some of that stuff. But
That's it.
like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
Little do they know, the world is brown. The world is going to be brown. It's going to
Yeah,
be little me's, little Obamas, little, you know what I'm saying? Little Mariah Careys. We're all running around. Little, Drakes and Lenny Kravitz. We're all running around. We're all, and it's going to be that as the world continues to grow.
yeah, seems to be, especially in America. I mean, other countries don't. It's kind of weird to think about. Like, other countries don't have racial diversity. Like, there are many countries that do not really have racial diversity to even worry about. It's not something
Right.
you have to factor in. And it's like in America, UK, I don't know how much it really is in Australia, but I'm sure it's some component there. But like these France and these countries that are like,
Mono.
yeah, it's like the first time. It really does feel like the first time, because I'm really huge into history. Like, I study history like as a hobby and went to school for it and everything. And it's like really fascinating to me to kind of look at these various civilizations and cultures that have existed throughout time and just kind of compare the similarities, because you start to notice there's certain things that are just happen in all civilizations and cultures. It doesn't matter. Like, there's just things that human beings are going to deal with. But then it's like dealing with, this diversity thing is kind of like a very new phenomenon, because usually people were kind of staying isolated based on their groups, or if another group rolled in, they weren't really assimilating. It was usually conquering and killing and that kind of thing. So it's like what we are trying to do is really kind of like unprecedented in like human history, and it's
That's so true. That's so true.
because honestly, like, it feels like democracy maybe wasn't set up to have like diverse, like multiple groups of people kind of all trying to come together. It was usually for like one group of people that largely agree on everything, and then kind of like nitpicking around the edges.
You're
So
right. You're right.
doing is extremely difficult. That's why it's hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something there's like a blueprint for that you could look to and be like, this is how you do it. We're just kind of like figuring it out along the way, and you have people that are trying to prevent change, which sucks. But
Yeah, yeah, it does. But but you know, here we are.
here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah,
You
I'm very
know,
curious to see what's
here
going to
we
happen
are.
in the next couple of weeks,
Whew, yeah.
because it's like we're at the point now where it's like everybody's kind of like realizing, at least state by state. I don't know how much is really going to needs to be done at the national level, because it's like most of these things are like handled at the state or local level. But I know like there's certain things people are talking about, like federal guidelines for policing, which I it's kind of shocking me that don't exist right now. So,
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully we can get some stuff done. But it's like you see these states slowly starting to propose things, and it's like it's going to be interesting to see like which states get it right, which states might not, which states are going to be
Yeah.
resistant to change. The South.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. Yeah. It's gonna have the South is gonna have a hard time, huh?
yeah,
But I mean, we're all having a hard time. All the states are having a hard time, you know? So, um,
just got to keep pressure on them until it happens.
nobody likes change. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
No, change is hard. Change is not easy. Oh my God. Change is hard, you know? So I somehow sort of feel for those racists. I kind of get it. I don't like change either.
Yeah.
You know, things were fine. We were just dying, but things were fine.
That's the weird thing for me is like I know that there were racist people like where I grew up, and I know there still are racist people there, but I just can't wrap my head around how you could believe it because it's like all evidence you see in life contradicts that narrative for the most part. So it's like even if you are taught it and it's like told to you, it's like at some point like you're what you're seeing in reality has to kind of contradict what your belief is, and it's got to like cause that seems like that's got to cause like something to
But
happen.
there are fewer and fewer people who think that they're racist.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that even those, you know, even those people we call rednecks who live a particular way and, you know, whatever, I don't think that they categorize themselves as racist, many of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure
It's
they probably.
so hard to know, to see yourself.
Yeah. I could see that though cuz I was explaining to somebody the other day like in especially like in white communities, like the number one
Mm,
thing you're always like the worst thing you can ever accuse a white person of is being racist. Like in a white community
mhm.
because that's like the number one thing. That's like the ultimate slur. Like it's just like you don't call somebody that. Like that's just a horrible like even like growing up like I knew that was like a horrible thing to not be you should not be racist. But then you would like there were these racist people like and you would just kind of look at them like what the fuck like you're not allowed to say that in public.
Yeah.
Like, you can't say that word. Like what kind of parents do you have like that teach you that that's acceptable to say? And then you find out those people still exist. It's like, Jesus. Did you see the lady in New York Park, New York Central Park?
The bird watcher
That's one of
incident.
those ladies because I think she was like a Barack Obama supporter. She'd be like, I'm
Yeah,
not racist. I voted for Barack Obama.
she is. She
That's
is one of those ladies. I never meant to hurt a community of people, and that wasn't my intention. Bitch, excuse me.
no,
That wasn't your intention. No one's focusing on the intention.
yeah.
No one's focusing on the intention.
Oh, it
No one
definitely was
cares
her
about the
intention.
intention. Huh?
That definitely was her intention because like the way she said that and oh, it was just oh
And
that
what
was
she
the same
said?
day that video came out the same day as George Floyd. Like I remember being at work, just kind of seeing this article, and on the way, as soon as I get home, I watched the video of that. Then I watched the George Floyd video, and I was like, God, okay, well my day's just ruined. Like fuck,
Mm,
like I just want to go out
mm,
and riot right now. And then 2 days later, we have
mhm.
rioting in the streets, and I was like, I get it, because my first reaction was want to burn shit down when I saw that.
Right.
And I'm not even black. Like if I was black, I would feel a lot more angry about that.
Exactly. And isn't it so refreshing and freeing that you get to talk in hypotheticals?
Yes.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
But
get you get to remove your feelings if you want to.
because I
It's
was thinking about
really exceptional.
like the worst fear I've ever had of cops is like in my hometown. Like I knew there were some cops that were like dirty cops and like kind of shady and like would abuse you a little bit. but that would be like, the fear you would have would be like they're gonna maybe like hit you a couple times or might bounce your head off the car as they're putting you in the car or something like that. I never had to worry about them killing me. Like the thought of getting murdered by the cops was like not even on my radar. Whereas like every black person in this country for like the past 350 years has had to have that on their radar. Like every time they interact with a police officer, like somewhere, hopefully in the back of their head, they're kind of like, this could go sideways. Like, and I could be
it's because police were made for runaway slaves.
yeah,
So they were meant to always kill us. How can we expect to how can we expect to reform laws for police officers? That's not what they're like.
yeah,
They weren't really meant to serve and protect us, as in me and my community.
yeah. Plus, the other thing I was thinking about recently, or man, I've been thinking about a lot of shit from this past week, but the other thing I was just thinking about for the first time was like every immigrant group that's came to this country has basically like had to go through getting harassed and abused by police officers. But for every other immigrant group, it usually lasts one generation. And then by that second generation, they've kind of started to assimilate into the population, and the hatred against them has started to decline quite a bit to where it's not really that much of an issue anymore. And by the third generation, it's like they're completely assimilated. But then you have black people. That has never happened. Like every generation, it's the same. Like fear the cops. Cops are harassing you. Fear the cops. Cops are harassing you. It's like, that's why when you hear these people like, well, my family, like Irish people or like Italian people or like people like that, like my family used to get beat up. Yeah, but that lasted for a generation. Like, then you were good. Then you became the cops and, you blended in and married into all these people. Like that's, black people could never do that because it's like their skin color is always going to identify them as not part of the group that is oppressing people. It's like
it's because we were slaves.
Yeah.
It's because we were slaves, and so that's the way we always will be looked at as slaves.
Because I just recently was like learning about like the Chinese kind of experience, like on the West Coast. And I was like, they kind of had it like really bad for like generation, maybe two generations. And then somehow, I don't know if it was like the guilt from the internment camps, but then it was like somehow after World War II, like it seems like they kind of like stopped like treating like Chinese people and Japanese people like brutalizing them. And like it's some
wasn't it because of Chinese food?
Could have been. Like we love the food.
I'm serious. I know that sounds stupid, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, that's how Chinese people did it.
Maybe that worked for Mexican people too, because at some point they kind of stopped being brutalized quite to that level. It's just like I don't know. It never stopped.
I definitely don't think it was food with the Mexicans. I wonder what it was. It was something though. The Chinese people, damn it, I feel like it's food.
Well, I feel like for Mexican people, like, because there's a lot of Mexican people I'll meet that look white to me, and then you can only their last name's Mexican or whatever, Spanish.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and then you ask them, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm Mexican or whatever. So maybe that's why.
Latin, yeah.
A lot easier for them to blend in because a lot of them have lighter skin. But then you see some, South America or Central American people that look like straight up Native American.
Or
you're not going to blend in so easy. Yeah.
Lots of Puerto Ricans, Cubans, they look like black people. It's crazy.
I work with like a lot of Pacific Islanders. And I've noticed people from Palau look black to me. I work with multiple Palauans, and like my girlfriend was telling me, she's like, that Palauan lady over there. I was like, what? I was like, there's no Palauan lady. You mean the black lady? She was like, no, she's Palau. And I was like, dude, that lady's black. Then I asked her, and she's like, no, I'm from Palau. I was like, fuck. I was like, why do you look black then? Like, what? Like, how do Pacific Islanders look black? I don't understand. Just on this one island. because I work with like
Mhm.
Pacific Islanders, like multiple islands, and they all kind of have like a distinct look, which is
Look.
yeah, because you can kind of
Yeah, that's interesting too. We've got the Papua New Guineans
mm,
who are here. I always confuse them with being black. I'm always
mm,
like, oh, that black, and Kirk is like, no, that's an Islander. I'm like, oh,
yeah, the
dang.
Aborigines. I don't know. I've never really like when you see the old pictures of like Aborigines from like 100 years ago, dude, they
Hmm.
are black as fuck. I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're very black. And many of them identify with being black, not Black American, being black.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's always been so mysterious to me, like how, because you have like obviously black people in Africa, and then
Yeah.
you have like these really dark, well, I would say they look, well, not feature wise, but skin color wise, black people in like South India, and then
Hmm.
you have them in Australia, but nowhere
Hmm.
really between South India and Australia that I'm aware of. And I'm like,
Um,
that's a very interesting part of human history that we don't really know a ton about there.
yeah. That is interesting. You know, I will say this. I do find that a lot of Asian people have features like Black people.
What do you mean? Hmm.
Mm,
You mean like all
I,
of Asia or just like certain parts of Asia?
um,
I feel Southeast Asia much more so than like Japan or something,
no,
or like Indonesia.
Chinese, Koreans. Like you look at, for example, I think about my brother.
Hmm.
My brother has very, one of my brothers, he's got very, uh, similarly Asian features. He's got kind of or what stereotypically would be Asian features.
Yeah,
You know what, Bulls basketball player, um, Bulls basketball player, what's his name? He always gets injured, young, light in complexion.
Zach Levine, skinny.
No, he's black. He's not skinny. Light in complexion. Always he one of the play one. He also was like had a rape charge or
Oh, Derrick Rose.
sexual. No. Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
Derek. So my brother looks like Derek Rose. I think that Derek Rose has Asian features.
yeah. Your brothers have a unique look, like because I've
Mm-hmm.
seen pictures of them, like when you posted pictures of your brothers, and I'm like, if I was just to meet your brother and not know anything about them, I would be like, okay, he's clearly like mixed in some capacity. I have no idea. It's like one of those ambiguous looks where you're like, you could tell me you were one of like a mix of like one of 300 different things, and I'd be like, that makes sense. But yeah, he clearly looks like
Mm-hmm.
mixed
Mm-hmm.
in some capacity, but you wouldn't be able to figure it out, I don't think. Because like
Mm.
it's really weird. It's fascinating to me like how certain people can like mix together and just create this like look that doesn't necessarily like point you in either direction of like what they're actually mixed with. And then other people are like get
Right.
together and you're like, you are clearly half this, half this. Like it's very obvious.
Mm-hmm. It is crazy how mixed children can look the same, like look like each other and also look different too. You
Yeah.
just never know what will happen. I mean, you never know that with any kind of kid, but like, yeah. But I do think that Derek Rose, he looks definitively black to me, but he also looks like he's got Asian, stereotypically Asian features.
Mm,
The eyes, the mouth. Lots of Asians have full lips.
they do.
Lots of Asians have noses where they're not particularly pointy, but they've got like dimension, lots of dimension to them, and small,
Yeah.
and lots of room on their faces, and um, you know, almond shaped eyes, or squintier types. I shouldn't even say squintier, but you know what I mean, like less.
Yeah.
I feel like typically we see the stereotype or the narrative. Black people kind of have like these wide eyes, just like big eyes,
Mm,
and um, you know, there are a lot of Black people who've got that Asian. It looks like Asian persuasion's going on there, you know what I mean? But that is a Black look as well, you know. And I think it's interesting to me because I feel like this is crazy, but I have never identified with the Asian culture, but yet I feel very comfortable with Asians, with the Asian community, in that I may not know the language, whether that's Korean, whether it's Chinese, whatever it is. And granted, no, every culture is racist. So I know that, I don't doubt that, you know, there's been things and whatever said about me, but if I'm on public transportation and there's a room full, it's a bus full of whatever it is, and I get on the bus and I see there's an Asian person there, I'm probably going to sit next to them. I don't know why I'm drawn to them, but it sort of feels like I see them in me. So it feels a little bit comfortable. And this has been the weirdest phenomenon for me, because I felt like this, I think, my entire life. It's like I'm looking and I see myself in them, even though I'm not at all. There's no, like, I've got no lineage, no blood, nothing. But you naturally gravitate to what what you look like, or people who look like you naturally. And or even instinctually, you know, you don't purposefully go, it's, you know what I mean? Like, you just, oh, that's somebody who kind of looks like me, I guess I'll hang out with them. Even as a kid, I tended to have lots of Asian friends. I didn't, you know, one of my best friends, Hope, she's Korean, and it was my husband who pointed out time and time again, you don't hear her. You keep misunderstanding her. I keep trying to tell you, she's got a really thick Korean accent.
Yeah.
Really thick Korean accent. She's been in America for a long time, but she's got a thick accent, and I love it. And I think I hear her just fine. Yeah. And I think I hear her just fine because we've been friends for this long, and she's never said I haven't, you know, heard her. Yeah. But Kirk will be like, no, she didn't say that. She said blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, she didn't. She said blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Hope, you know, did you say this or did you say this? And she's like, no, I said what Kirk said. And I'm like, oh my God. But we've gotten along, I realize, because of something that's like behavioral, a familiarity, which is comfortable. Like, we get along in silence. You know, we could be working on something, driving somewhere, and not talk. She could be talking, I could be talking, we could be talking at each other and still be communicating. It's the weirdest thing. But anyway, I don't know why this is even a topic of conversation, but it's interesting because I guess I'm talking as a person of color, as a Black woman, at least someone who identifies as Black, where I seem to feel probably the most at ease. The most, and when I say at ease, I mean a community of people where it feels familiar. That's weird. Especially because I never experienced that for real. So I don't know why. Maybe if I went to Korea or Japan or other places.
Didn't you live like in Koreatown when you lived in LA?
In with those people. What?
Sorry, I think we got a lag here somewhere. Can you hear me?
What? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
They? Okay. Uh-huh.
Oh, you can't hear me now. Maybe. Oh, may have lost her. Well, it looks like we got a premature end here due to some issues with Wi-Fi. But hope you enjoyed the conversation, and